Okay, so in this video, I'm just going to go over how you control the shape of your diagrams in Orchard. So I have a sort of blank session just opened up here, and we're not gonna mess with any labeling and any variables or anything like that. We're just gonna learn how to control the shape inside this editor area right here. So first thing is that Orchard always does this highlighting for me so that I can read off faces and where the cells are and things like this, like we learned in some of the earlier videos. And then if I click on a particular cell, you can see this blue will get a little bit darker and the cell will stay selected. So just by clicking on a cell, it will select that cell, and it will remain selected. It will also select its faces, as you'll see when we work into higher dimensions. And to deselect something, you can just click outside in the white area, or even the gray area works as well. Okay, so there are two main tools for changing the shape, and they're up here on the menu here. And they're these two. They're extrude selection and extrude drop. So we'll play with the extrude selection first, and then I'll explain what drops are and why they're special in a little bit. But so for now, if I choose extrude selection, what it's roughly going to do is it's going to enclose whatever cells I have selected in a new box. So if I do that right now, I have one cell selected, and it will enclose it in a box. And so the original cell was this one. It's a little bit hard to see when they're not labeled, but this was the original cell, and this is the new cell that Orchard gave me. And it gave me a cell one dimension higher that interpolates between the selection and the new box that I surrounded it with. Okay, so right, I think I touched briefly in the last video on the fact that these gray cells, they're a little bit like guide cells. They're allowing me to, even when I don't have a complete open-topic diagram, to enclose it in an open-topic diagram. And this is an idea of Marek Zawakowski and Thorsten Palm. And in any case, so another way to think of what this darker plus cell is that it's the open space behind my diagram in the next dimension. And that's why I've named these commands extrusion, because what it does when I extrude is it pushes into that empty space. So as a consequence, you can only ever extrude selections which lie directly above the gray plus. So for example, if I've selected this cell here, which lies above something which is not gray, it lies above this cell right here, and I try to extrude, Orchard won't do anything. It should give me an error message, and maybe I'll get to implementing that soon. But in any case, for now, it won't do anything. And the reason is because there's already some open-topic information behind this cell. There's already this one cell here, which connects it with this one. It's only when I've selected something which lies over the plus, or what is equivalent, in the next dimension, its line is going into the minus, and those two things are the same, that Orchard will allow me to extrude it. So if I go do it now with this one, I'll be allowed to stick some new information behind it. Okay, and right, just a last quick note is that since this happens so much, you don't have to go up to the menu every time. If you want to extrude something, you can press Control E. So I select something here, and I press Control E, and I get a new box around it. Okay, so in the next dimension, we can do the same thing. If I select this single cell right here, notice Orchard now is also selecting its faces down here. But since it lies on the gray plus right there, that means there's empty space behind it, and I can extrude, and I will get a new cell surrounding it, which gets selected automatically. And some space in the next dimension interpolating between the two. So this would be not so interesting if the only thing I could ever do was extrude a single cell. But what I can also do is extrude multiple cells at the same time, and this corresponds to surrounding multiple boxes. So to do that, what you should do is first select the cell that you want to enclose, which is closest to the root of the tree that you're trying to surround. We'll see. This will be a little easier to see in higher dimensions. For now, it's going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to select this one first. Then I'm going to hold down Control and select the one above it. And now Orchard has both of these cells selected. And so if I do an extrusion now, it will surround them both. And it's by enclosing multiple cells at the same time that you start to build branches in the tree in the next dimension. Okay, so let me make a little bit of space here, and let's see if we can get a little bit of a handle on how Orchard handles these selections. Okay, so if you'll recall in the OpenTopic diagrams, what you're allowed to do is any subtree of this tree that I see right here, I'm allowed to enclose in a box. So so to facilitate that, what Orchard does is it remembers the first time you select something. And then when you Control-click another cell, which is a descendant of your first selection, it will select every cell along the path back down to your first selection. So here I make a first selection of that cell right there, and then I hold down Control and I'm going to select this cell, and notice it selects everything along the path back down to my first selection. And the reason for this is it enforces the idea that you can only ever surround a complete subtree with a new box. So if I extrude this now, I will get a box surrounding exactly those cells, and Orchard was smart and moved these extra cells sort of out of the way. Okay, so again, in every dimension, I can still select multiple cells at the same time, but these two cells I cannot extrude because there's a white cell behind them. I can only extrude something which has a gray cell behind it. So I could select this, for example, and then I could hold down Control and select this one up here, and this one up here, and this is a subtree which lies over this gray plus, so I can extrude him and get a box surrounding it. Okay, so that's the basic. I would say that's the majority of the time you'll be using Control E or this extrude selection command to extrude a box around a subtree that you've already created. Okay, so and the last thing, I'm going to open a new sheet here so we can talk about the other thing, is that if you like, when you extrude, you're asking for new space between a cell and another cell. But there are these special shapes in OpenTopic diagrams which are loops. And I have opened this original example down here. And an example of a loop is this cell I right here. This was the example we examined in one of the first videos. You can see it's a loop from Y to Y. So it doesn't connect Y with a new cell, it connects Y with itself. And that's what this extrude drop command is for. So if I select this bottom cell now and do a normal extrusion, I get a new box and the space filling it in. On the other hand, if I select the bottom cell and I do an extrude drop, I don't get a new cell in this dimension. What I get is a loop connecting that cell to itself and the space in the next higher dimension filling in that loop. Okay, so that's what the extrude drop command is for. It's for getting loops, endomorphisms, if you like, from a cell to itself. But once that thing is created, it obeys the same rules. I can select it along with another cell, and I can extrude around both of those. And then I could say select these two and extrude around both of those. And these drops, they exist in every dimension. So if I select this one cell right here, I can get an endomorphism of that one cell by extruding a drop, and you can see this cell. Its input is that cell, and its output is that cell, so it's exactly a higher dimensional loop. So that's what the extrude drop command is for. Okay, so those are the two methods for changing the shape of your expression in Orchard.